Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. I'm delighted to welcome Jane Isay to the program today. She's been a lifelong writer and an editor for more than 40 years. She's also a New Yorker with a life story that could fill several books. But in her latest, Secrets and Lies, Surviving the Truths That Change Our Lives, published by the Doubleday division of Random House, she focuses on the lives of others. She explores how the lies we tell and the secrets we keep can exact a bitter toll on both the finders and the keepers. And in the process of discussing the secrets and lies of her subjects, she also reveals some of her own. Welcome.
Thank you.
You write that your book, quote, delves into the rage and misery and hopelessness we feel when we learn a secret that has betrayed our trust. Why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote this book because I was both a finder and a keeper. I had been married 15 years when my husband, the father of our two children, revealed that he was homosexual. And it was just that. He told me one night, my future crashed on the floor around my feet. I didn't know what was going to happen. I got cold. And we were in a hotel. I jumped into the bathtub, made it as hot as I could make it. My skin was burning, and I never got warm. It was the end of my life as I knew it. Now, when that happens, it's very, very hard to recover. In our case, we flew back to New York from San Francisco, and we sat in the back of the plane and we wept together. By the time we landed in New York, we had decided to stay married, to keep this a secret. Dick would be able to be with the person whom he had fallen in love with. I would manage somehow, and we would raise our children. So for 10 years, we did that. So I was a finder when I learned this secret, and then I was a keeper because I had to tell no one the story of what we were living through.
Had you ever suspected he was gay before he told you?
No.
Okay.
Now, that may have been a denial, but he didn't seem gay to me.
Okay. So you kept this secret for, you said, 10 years afterwards. Yeah. So what ended your marriage? What finally ended the secret keeping and the marriage?
My sons. I wanted them to grow up in a regular family. No family is normal, but regular would do. And when the youngest went to college, it was quiet now. I realized how lonely I had been for these 10 years, and I couldn't stand it. So I asked Dick for a divorce. And the first words out of his mouth, sweet man that he was, were, "I'll do everything I can to help you." And the second words out of his mouth, being a Freudian psychoanalyst, were, "You're making the worst mistake of your life." He was wrong.
Okay. Now, and this was a secret from your sons as well.
The boys, our sons had learned the truth a couple of years before, a year and a half before.
Before the divorce?
Before the divorce.
Okay. So was it wrong to have kept your marriage together for those 10 years, kept your family together, to have continued a partnership with someone that you loved and who loved you? Was that wrong?
You know, I have come to believe that the words wrong and right, the words normal and neurotic, do not belong in this matter.
Or was it a mistake?
I can't tell you. What I can tell you is that our two sons are among the most amazing men I know. They have married wonderful women and have beautiful children. I survived the 10 years of cold, of sorrow, found my first love and married him. Dick, when we got divorced, was so anxious about it, he went to the doctor. He by then came out completely. Went to the doctor for a checkup. The doctor said, "What happened?" He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Your blood pressure is perfect. Your pulse is normal." The impact of keeping this secret had an effect on his body, and it had an effect on my soul. I can't tell you if it was right or wrong, because I don't know what would have happened if we had done something else. And that's the problem. When your future goes boom, you can't predict what's going to happen. When your life is moving along and the secret hasn't come out, You think of yourself as old, we'll be with the grandchildren together, all of those things. It went away.
So how did you feel after you decided, how did you feel after you decided to end it, and how did others react when they were told, family members, friends?
I should tell you first that when we told our sons, the older son was very upset. We've lived a lie. The younger son was told, and his brother called, lived in the village, do you want to come down and be with me? And Josh said, I don't want to leave the house now because I don't want Dad to think I don't love him.
This is the younger son?
The younger son.
Okay.
So when we got, they were expecting a divorce. The younger one was expecting a divorce. The older one, who's an idealist, couldn't had a hard time accepting it. But it was not a surprise. It was not a surprise to anybody. But in the course of saying that we were telling people that we were getting divorced, I told my secret to my friends, to my colleagues, and to the world. That was hard because some of them felt, how could you have been my very close friend and not told me?
Now you describe yourself, you just describe yourself as being both a secret finder and a secret keeper.
Yeah.
Do you identify with one more than the other? Do you think you?
You know, life is long. Do I identify? That's a really good question. I need to think about it.
Okay. Okay.
I think the answer is that having had both experiences, I can write a book in which I identify with the people who were the keepers and the finders. That life experience has opened my heart to the troubles, to the pain, to the difficulty, and to the reconciliation.
What's the impact of discovering a long-held secret on the secret keeper and on the secret finder?
On the secret keeper is really scared. Okay, we have to start with the fact. There is a fact. It is buried. That's the secret. After it is buried, in order to keep it buried, you have to tell a lot of lies. These are two separate things. People get very upset as much about the years of lies, how could you have lied to me all these years, as about the act.
Right.
So that is the first thing. For the secret keeper, I haven't found, I didn't interview any sociopaths. I haven't found anybody who liked keeping a secret. There were reasons. There was fear of discovery, fear of losing love, fear of shame. So the impact of telling is double. That is, you're scared that they're never going to love you again. And you're also relieved that you don't have to be a double person.
Right. You also write about the impact of having kept secrets from children, that
Yeah.
this is particularly hard on children. You write about, for instance, the impact of not telling a child that he or she was adopted, or not
Yes.
telling them that a family member they thought was dead is in fact alive.
Yeah.
So how do children react? You talked about your sons, but
Yeah.
how the
Well,
other children?
Now, here's the thing about children. Children are very, very good watchers of their families. They see more than we can dream they see. It's just the truth. I have a chapter in the book called The Little Detective, and this is about children who thought something was weird and had the perseverance to find out what it was. When there are double realities in a family, that is the truth and the secret, the kids don't know where to stand. They get and they really, really want to know. The problem is that if they have a suspicion, they make up reasons and answers, and they're never happy ones. We know that children blame themselves if the parents get divorced.
Right.
Children always put the burden on themselves. So that's children in the family. I also have a chapter in the book about silence. When everybody knows something terrible has happened, and the parents say, we'll never discuss it again. And the title of that chapter is, If You See Something, Say Something. The impact of a family silence over something they all know is really devastating, because they can't talk to each other about the most important thing.
Right. And you also said that when a lie is revealed,
Yeah.
the world sort of shifts underneath
Yes.
people's feet, because they don't, okay, well, if this was a lie, how about other parts of my
right.
life? Is that a reality? Or and sort of like, who am I? Where am I?
That's right. This is really, not only is that kind of universal, but there's a psychological, there's a brain mechanism behind it. Our consciousness is made up of the stories we tell ourselves every day, about our past, our present, and expectations of the future. So when you discover, when your mother says, I have to tell you, your father isn't as dead as you thought.
He's the undead.
He's the undead. And she spends 10 years looking for him, finally finds him, and discovers the other half of herself. And because when you discover that your birth parent, you see part of who you are. For her, it was a great blessing to find her dad, although she was angry at her mom. But when she heard the circumstances under which her mother kept the secret, she had great empathy. And this is another thing that I have learned, and I write in the book. If you have a secret and you tell it, you better be prepared to really talk about it. Because the more that you tell of the circumstances and the reasons and what you were feeling, and the more you apologize without being defensive, the more likely understanding will be. If you say, well, I did that and we're not going to discuss it, it's over. Yeah.
How about the impact on a spouse of not acknowledging that, say, her spouse is having affairs?
Well, it hollows you out. And what happens is that you begin to believe that you're not the adorable person he married. Otherwise, he would be more attentive to you. You may not know the details of the affair, but you know that his heart is somewhere else. A fugitive at the dinner table is how I describe it. And so you begin to, in order to keep sane, to keep things in rational in your mind, you have to make an excuse. And if you're going to stay in this marriage with someone who is not being faithful to you, the algebra is, he's wrong, there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
We're going to take a short break. Then we'll be back with more with Jane Isay, author of Secrets and Lies, Surviving the Truths That Change Our Lives, after this message. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Jane Isay, author of Secrets and Lies, Surviving the Truths That Change Our Lives. It's just been published by the Doubleday Books Division of Random House. Sometimes, and there were a number of instances in your book, the results of revealing a long-held secret are not so positive. But is it important to reveal the secret anyway?
That's a very good question. If you have a secret that is burning in your heart, you may need to tell the secret. Very often the secrets come out not under your agency, an anonymous letter, a clue. So the way in which secrets come out is sometimes in your power and sometimes not. And very often there is real trouble. That's why you kept the secret to begin with, because you wanted to avoid that.
Right.
So, and what's more exciting and interesting to me is the cases when learning the secret does not ruin a relationship. Because most people keep a secret because they're afraid the person who should know is not going to love them anymore.
Right, right.
So, sure, you tell your husband discovers that you're sleeping with the babysitter, the male babysitter, and the marriage is going to break up. The husband, there's a man in my book, Dennis, who doesn't see the clues.
And his wife is, in fact, having an affair with the babysitter.
She's sleeping with the babysitter, and the kids are saying, Mom is sitting awfully close to Henry. And finally, he discovers it, and he says to me, it was the worst day of my life. And he couldn't believe it. How could she want to be with him, not Dennis? And eventually, they divorced. He quit his job, stopped traveling, took care of the children, went back to graduate school, and built a new life, built on truth. And he says, honesty is the softest pillow, and I sleep very well. And at the end of the interview, he said, if that revelation was the worst thing in my life, I'm a lucky man.
So there is recovery.
There is recovery. And you know, if people could survive slavery and the Holocaust and Hiroshima, you could really survive a secret because we have the ability.
Can you think of situations, however, where it's acceptable to keep a secret for a period of time? For instance, I mean, what's wrong with not telling your 2-year-old that his father is the married man who lives across the street?
There is a developmental trail here. You don't tell children who can't handle the truth until they can handle it. But it's really important when you say that, many people think, well, now the child is 4, he can handle it, but I've kept the secret, so I'm not going to tell. At some point, the reality, because the child at 4 or 5 is noticing something. So a version, you don't have to tell the whole truth. You do have to protect children from hard truths, but you cannot, by doing that, decide never to come clean.
Right. You write that funerals and deaths often expose secrets.
Yeah.
Probably weddings too.
Yeah.
That's when people tend to act up.
They do. Well, I think people are really head up. There's a great deal of emotion at a funeral. One of the stories in my book is told by a man who loved his grandfather better than anybody in the world. And it was at his grandfather's funeral when his uncle said, "Come on outside." And he went outside, and there was Uncle Artie with a lady. Well, that was no big surprise. And he said, "I want you to meet your sister." And he couldn't believe it. And he went back into the funeral parlor, and his mother was looking at the cards of the flowers, and she said, "Who was that woman?" And he said, "I don't know, Mom," because he wasn't going to tell her. Later, he accosted his father and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And he said, "She's not my daughter." Well, that turned out to be lies too. And what this man was left with, because nobody would come clean with him, he was 36.
Right.
Was that he couldn't get the real truth from anybody. Now, this is a cruelty beyond words. The other funeral, a woman goes, 2 sisters go to their father's funeral. They've been told that he's a bad man and that he never loved, that his whole family had moved away, and he had been unfaithful to their mother and married another woman. They walked into his funeral, and she saw a man who looked just like her father when she had last seen him 30 years before, and it was her half-brother. And that was a beautiful reunion because the truth was what they could stand on.
Right, right. Was there a person in your book that you identified with most?
That's a wonderful question. I think the person I admired most is the last person in my book, the last story, Jacky, who grew up keeping secrets and having secrets told from her, kept from her. She had been abused by her brother. She kept that a secret. Her brother, as he got older, beat up his wife. She kept that a secret. She was gay. She kept that a secret. She was married and gay. She kept that a secret. She started drinking. She kept that a secret. And over the years in Alcoholics Anonymous, which one of the principles is your secret is your biggest problem. She began to come to truth with herself and with her family. She came out to her mother, who was not pleased, but over time they were able to form a relationship. She found a way to reconnect with her brother through helping their mother. And then she became a whole person. And she said to me, "I can be myself with you and with my mother and with my friends and with my brother. You can't know what that means to me."
Now, you obviously had your own experience with being a secret finder and a secret keeper in your own marriage. What did you learn from the people you interviewed for this book that perhaps you...
First I learned that we are not alone, that in every family there are secrets. It's a universal thing. People get ashamed and they want to hide their bad deed. Starts with Genesis, Adam and Eve hide the apple. They're ashamed and they don't want retribution. God kicks them out of the Garden of Eden. We are universally sinners. We are sinned against. We are hurt, and we recover. It's the human condition. So I learned a lot about the human condition. I also learned that people who keep secrets are not in love with doing that.
Okay.
And you say, well, how could she do that? It's not fun. There are other reasons. I also learned that explanation and conversation is the antidote to the pain. Imagine classic theater. Generally, the great Greek tragedies end with the revelation of a secret. Oedipus discovers he's been sleeping with his mother. He puts out his eyes. The curtain comes down. In life, there is a fourth act. That is the act of conversation, which may, but not always, lead to reconciliation.
How is your family doing now?
Well, I have both my first husband and my second husband are both gone now. So it's me and my sons. They are amazing men. They have beautiful wives and wonderful children, and we're very close. And my efforts to keep this a family for the 10 years and for the years after have paid off because we are so deeply and profoundly family.
One of your sons, David, is a keeper of stories, or
Yes,
teller of stories.
A finder of stories.
He's with Storycorps.
He's the founder of Storycorps.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. And Josh probably has to keep secrets sometimes. He's with a public relations firm.
Well, he's a political consultant. Yes, Josh is more behind the scenes, and David is in front. But Storycorps was founded by a boy who grew up with secrets in his home. Now, think about that. He wants people to tell their stories.
Mm-hmm.
He's got more than 50,000 interviews in the Library of Congress. It's a great institution. Where do you think it came from?
Do you get a sense of what your sons, what they took from your own experience, your family secret with Secrets and Lives, how that has affected how they are now and how they conduct their own lives?
I think they have more compassion. I think they don't want the complications of secrets. And they really, really, really love their father, and they really, really love me. For that to be possible over the years of lies and of difference is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So what do you want your readers to take from this book?
I want my readers to know that we all are sinners, and that if we find ourselves in a situation where we feel terrible about something we have done and we've kept a secret, there may be a way to get it off our chest. And for the ones who have been hurt by the secret, anger is appropriate. Rage is appropriate. It cauterizes your feelings. But in the end, you can't be betrayed by somebody you don't care about. So the big question is, what do you do with the love, which was there? Otherwise, the betrayal wouldn't have hurt. And once you can deal with the love and recognize it and honor it despite the betrayal, then you're on the way to healing.
And you certainly managed that. You know, you had a successful second marriage. And was your philosophy to be completely honest in the second marriage?
You know, every marriage is complicated, and no life is blissful. I think pain is part of how we live. That's a depressing moral, but we deal with it,
Mm-hmm.
and we survive it, and we grow from it.
Right.
And so I'm very hopeful about this book, which is full of pain and full of sad stories, I think is comforting because you read it and you know you're not alone.
Okay. And generally,
Yeah?
the truth sets you free.
Yeah. Yeah. I end my book with the story of my second husband's death. And he had a month to live. And for some reason, this man who was afraid of doctors accepted that he was dying. He would say, "This is bizarre." But we talked about everything. And that month was the sweetest and most intimate month of our lives. And I would say to myself, this is really hard, but at least I know.
Yeah.
And that's my mantra. Whatever hits you, at the end of learning, you stand on solid rock and you say, at least I know, now what do I do?
Okay, very interesting book. I want to thank Jane Isay for joining me today. Secrets and Lies, Surviving the Truths That Change Our Lives is published by the Doubleday Books Division of Random House. For the City University of New York and One to One, I'm Sheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.